Hello, this is I Do Damage, and welcome back to the channel. In this Wolcen Lords of Mayhem video, we're going to talk about a really overpowered starter build for the warrior archetype, and this is the Bleeding Edge build. This skill is straight up cheese mode, and I'm not lying, guys. Before we start, I just want to do a quick little side note about Wolcen. The online servers for Wolcen Lords of Mayhem will be down from January 29th until the release on February 13th. Just so you know, you will be able to play offline during those days, but just so you're aware of that. Also, before we start the video, I want to remind everyone I do stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Hopefully I'll be lucky enough to catch you there sometime. And don't forget, we have a very active Discord with over 100 members. Hopefully you can come and be a part of the fun there and coordinate some groups. So, let's talk Wolcen Lords of Mayhem Bleeding Edge Edition. This build is going to be broken down into a few different parts. If you don't know a lot about Wolcen Lords of Mayhem, the bread and butter to this game is this Gate of Fates. This is their passive skill tree system. Every ARPG has its own skill system, right? And this is by far the most interesting part of the game when it comes to your character and character development. This build is going to only showcase these 2 rings to start with. Once the game actually does come out, we'll have a whole 3rd ring with 12 more full classes to actually play around with. So that'll be pretty intense, but this is just to get you started off on the right foot at the release of Wolcen. So let's go ahead and start. First of all, you can look at these nodes and you can assume that since we're a warrior, we're going to go down the red colored path, as that's usually kind of your damage, melee, warrior type of class, right? So that's going to be true for the majority of this build. Since this build is a melee type, you're going to want a lot of max health and a lot of all resistance. All resistance is going to be one of your main stats, and that is simply because of this node right here, Retaliator. 0.75% damage per percent of physical resistance. That's huge. You're going to see your damage just shoot up from this node if you're following this build. But the negative thing with this node is that you get negative 50% crit chance. So we're going to try to counteract that with some crit as well. And then you're also pretty much, you can just pause and straight up copy this if you want. I'll just go through and kind of break down why I took the certain path and nodes that I did. So these over here are going to be your survival, your max health, your all resistance, all that stuff. And then over here, we're going to be trying to get to this node, which is your plus 50 critical hit chance score, which you're probably thinking, okay, well, that just straight up counteracts the negative 50 crit chance here. But this is crit hit chance. This is not score. This is a whole different number. And so we're still going to be negative a little bit of crit here, since this one is just the score. But anyway, that's for a whole different video. So we're going to take these nodes down here. You're going to be getting your melee weapon damage, your critical hit damage, all that good stuff, some attack speed there, critical hit damage, and just stack it up. And then after that, we're going to come down here, getting more damage. And this is kind of, this is usually your tank tree right here. But there we go, all resistance, which that equates to more damage. And then we just picked up these max health for the survival aspect. And then this side is your all resist. So you definitely want all of those. After that, we're going to come up here for the attack damage, health regen, and the big boy node that I talked about. And you're going to want these little mini nodes attached to it as well, because it'll buff up that passive node. And you'll kind of see that as a trend with all of the more bigger nodes. They have ones that buff them. But anyway, so after that, we kind of come down here into the assassin tree, since it's still more of a melee build. And we're going to come straight down here to get this little node right here. Active dodge can go through enemies. This is going to be huge since you are a melee build, and oftentimes you're going to get surrounded by enemies and you need a way out. There is going to be a leap ability tied to this, but you're going to notice that being able to dodge through enemies is actually game changer. So you're going to pick up all these nodes here. Material damage. And I skipped out on these little nodes here simply because I really wanted to get all the way around to this node here. So, and that was a hard call, but it was just a choice I had to make. So then we come all the way around Picking up all these little nodes. These little nodes are actually strong. Don't underestimate them in any build. And then these are honestly just to get us up to the Bestial Frenzy. This one is you do more damage for each enemy nearby. That's huge, especially since I just said you're going to be surrounded by enemies. You're going to notice a huge damage increase from this, and it's going to help out with your clear speeds in that Wrath of Carousel mode as well. And then you can get your buffs here, even more damage, and an even bigger radius. So even more enemies is giving you more damage. So that's going to be it pretty much for our Gate of Fates here. Go ahead, pause it, copy it, do whatever you want. This is going to be what your skill will look like at level 20. I think, honestly, just here, if you're leveling up and trying to follow this build, I would go down into these nodes first to get that health, all resist, and I would aim for this Retaliator node first right off the bat. You're going to get a lot of benefit from that. And then work your way around to the dodge and all that stuff. It's really up to you on exactly which route you want to take, but that's how I would do it if it was me. So that's going to be it for your passive skill tree. The next thing we need to talk about is your character stats. Each time you level up, you're going to gain 10 points to put into these attributes. And I had originally, when I made this build, went full toughness. And that is to get all that all resistance and to make my damage, average damage, skyrocket. So you can see right now I have it all into ferocity. Let's go ahead and reset it and see what happens when I put it all into toughness. So we were at 500 some. Let's go to do all toughness. You're going to notice I only get 515 there. Whereas if I do all ferocity, so you can see you actually do get more average damage from the full ferocity. And that is what you're going to want to do. The toughness isn't a bad choice if you're trying to be more of maybe of a tank support, because we'll get into the skills next and you'll kind of see as to how this could be more of a support build. But this is meant to be a starter build that does top-notch damage so you can mow down those mobs and farm for those items. So I would go full ferocity. You're getting that health regen, your attack critical chance, and then the spell crit, whatever. But we need that attack crit chance to counteract that one negative node that we have. And also, a side note when it comes to character stats is the more you pump into one stat, the more damage you actually get from that. So if you split them like 50-50, you're going to actually get less bonus damage from stats. But anyway, that's for a whole different thing. So the most important part of the build, other than the skill tree, which is by far my favorite part, let's talk about skills. When I'm playing my Bleeding Edge, I always want to have as many enemies stacked on top of me so I'm benefiting from all those nodes and getting that bonus damage. So the way that we pull that off is, first of all, we have Tracker's Reach. This is a chain ability that you can pretty much just grip enemies in. Here's what it looks like. You can see the little chains around me that actually will then vacuum them in pretty much on top of me. So that's Tracker's Reach. Here's the nodes that I took. We obviously want increased ranged. And then you actually gain rage, which you're going to need a lot of rage for our bread and butter ability, the Bleeding Edge, which we'll save for last. And then this one is makes the enemies drop health globes. This is huge. Your map's going to be just littered with health globes. So if you're playing in a party, you could be more of a healer role there by summoning those globes. And then this is the big boy one here. It does cost a full 8 points, and you're only limited to 20 modifier points. So this one's pretty huge to me. Being able to pull them in from all directions is just absolutely required, in my opinion. The next skill, and this is a circuit breaker kind of a mobility, or you can use it to just jump straight into the fray and pull them all in or whatever. This is Wings of Ishmir. I can show you what this skill looks like as well. It's straight up, it's a leap. This one has some pretty cool skill modifiers as well, but these are the ones I chose. More rage regeneration, obviously increased damage, and that stun is going to be huge as well, so you can stay alive for a few more seconds. And then this damage dealing shockwave. This is all just pretty much for damage. There's one down here you can do where there's no cooldown, but instead you use a stamina point, which are these green circles down here. And I've tried that node before, but then what happens is you run out of dodges and you can't actually dodge, which then makes your this skill node pretty much useless then because you're not dodging anymore. So pretty much this is just like an extra dodge you can do every 9 seconds to get out of harm's way if you need. The next skill on our list is Sovereign Shout. This one's going to provide a lot of benefit and survivability as well. Pretty much, whenever you shout, you're going to apply weakness to enemies, which makes the enemies take more damage and provides quite a few beneficial buffs in that sense. And then another health globe node so that you can get even more health globes out, as well as the all resistance per enemy hit. This one's going to be huge, and that's going to also synergize with our other damage node based on your resistance. So you're going to make sure you have that node. And last but not least, all of the buffs that are given by this skill have more effectiveness. So in essence, giving you more damage from the all resistance buff. So that's pretty straightforward. This is probably one of the more important skills really to get that damage out. And then this next skill I want to talk about is not a melee skill, actually. It's a healing spell type of ability. And you're going to have one item that is required for this build to actually work, and that is the shield. Quintet of Sundowns. This shield allows you to cast sacred spells. You're going to have this shield in order to use this next skill, okay? This is me. I do damage sending you luck that you can find this shield very early in your adventure in Wolcen Lords of Mayhem. If not, it's not a deal breaker. There's other skills you could probably use, but just so you know, you need it for this skill. Okay, I think I've got that point across. This next skill is Bulwark of Dawn, and this is going to be your healing ability, and you can actually force it to follow you around, so it's just your own personal healing bubble. It's a pretty sweet skill, and these are the nodes we take. Increased duration, all resist bonus, that just gives you more damage. You can kind of see a trend here with this build. More healing. And this is the big boy node. It does cost 8 points again, but this allows it to actually follow you around while you're fighting mobs. So that's pretty huge. Here's what it looks like. See how it follows me around. So it's pretty cool. You get all the resistance buff. It's honestly by far one of the coolest parts of the build. Now, the number one skill I know you've been waiting for. And this is where the build gets its name from. And this is Bleeding Edge. Here's what it looks like with all the runes I have. You can see how that is overpowered. It stays there and just keeps shredding enemies. Like, it's really good. So here it is, Bleeding Edge. These are the nodes that I took specifically. Increased area of effect. Obviously, the more area you can take up, the better. That's just these types of games, right? Damage dealt now gives life leech, just for a little more survivability. Also more likely to crit so that we can counteract that node back on the passive tree, if you can remember. And the big boy skill I take on this one is to where it keeps spinning in place for a short duration. But the thing is, it does cost more, but it does do a little bit less damage. But that's okay because we're getting all these damage buffs. And you can use this then to drop them on mobs, maybe run away while it's still dealing damage. And this build's insane. So that's pretty much your passive skill setup, your character stats, as well as the skill setup. Let's go ahead and jump in and show off some combat, shall we? I'll go ahead and run this on just a veteran one. Nothing too serious, but enough to show off the build to get the point across to you. So we'll just run this map, and I'll give a little bit of commentary here. Excuse my clicking. So this is how I play pretty much every ARPG. I like to get big groups, right? Big groups. But you can see it just mows them down. That's it. So we'll just fill up our bar and rush boss. I'm skipping loot. I'm pretty geared out. You know, I'm pretty much just waiting for the release anyway. I don't want to burn myself out on the game before it even releases. Here we go. These dudes can be pretty scary when you're doing the higher difficulties. They do a ton of damage. pretty much you're just going to make sure you have a full rage bar, bleeding edge, use your rage potions, and just make sure to use your Bulwark of Dawn every cooldown so that you can get that mana back into rage. That's pretty much the build, man. Well, I'll just go ahead and play out the rest of this little map for you here, and you can kind of see the build in action. I hope you enjoyed this build guide video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Ring that bell to get notified when I post new videos every Monday and Friday just for you. And we got a legendary. Nice. Ooh, it might actually even be an upgrade. Hot dog, dude. Aw, that's so good. Wow. Alright, that's pretty much the build in action. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.